In past webinars, I've explained that if you have an object that intersects the horizon in your scene, you would most likely want to use a SoftEdged neutral density grad to darken the sky if needed. By the same token, when you have a horizon that's not intersected, HardEdged grads can be used to darken an area and come right up against the horizon. But what about when you have a dark area overlaying a bright area, and you still want to darken that bright area a little bit? In this shot here of the New York City skyline, I got some decent detail out of the sky, but I wanted to add more drama to that blue in the top of the sky, and I also wanted to deepen that orange as the sun rose behind the city. I didn't use a filter in this shot, but I thought a filter might be exactly what I needed to get what I wanted out of this image. In this next shot, you can see I used a two-stop neutral density grad, SoftEdged, in a holder here, and you can see it did a pretty decent job of darkening the top edge of the sky. Since the SoftEdged filter is darker at the top and gradually transitions to clear, the part where I wanted the extra density, where the sun is brightest, wasn't affected as much as the top of the scene where the blue sky is. So then I moved to using a two-stop HardEdged neutral density grad. And you can see where the harder edge is lined up right at the water line just below the towers in the city. I just felt for this purpose that it was a little too obvious and not smooth enough a transition to get what I wanted out of the scene. I needed something between the HardEdged grad and the SoftEdged grad in terms of a transition. So I got a little creative with my technique. I pulled the filter out of the holder, and here I used a two-stop HardEdged grad, but instead of using it in the holder, I handheld it in front of my camera lens and moved it slightly up and down to smooth the transition out a little bit. And you can see I got a more dramatic sky. The oranges are a little darker, but you don't see that hard line that was created by the HardEdged neutral density grad when it was sitting in the holder. This allowed me to keep that drama in the sky and keep the density lower down in the scene, but it makes a softer transition so that it does appear a little bit more natural. And you can see here in the comparison, on the left with no filter, second from the left, you have a two-stop SoftEdged in the holder, which darkens the sky a little bit. And then on the right, a two-stop HardEdged grad, and you can really see where that HardEdged grad lined up right against the water line comes into play. It's just a little too obvious for me there. And then the two-stop HardEdged grad handheld. So I was able to get exactly what I wanted by taking the filter out of the holder and hand-holding it. In this video here, you can see how I'm hand-holding the filter in front of my image so that when the exposure is taking place, the transition from darker to clear is never quite in the same place at the same time. So you're able to see how I'm able to handhold this. It takes a little bit of practice to get used to, and you don't want your exposure to be too long when you're doing this. A second or 2 seconds like that would be perfect. Any longer than that, you increase the chances that you might mess up the exposure by either knocking the filter against the front of the lens or pulling the filter away too much where you get a reflection into the lens. Now here's another situation where this technique works well. Here I had no neutral density grad, and the sky's a bit washed out and has some hot spots in it. So my first step was to add a three-stop SoftEdged neutral density grad. Now again, it darkened the top of the sky, but still by the middle of the image, right by the horizon, the sky gets a little bit flat and loses some drama. So I wanted to correct that. Now again, I went to the three-stop HardEdged neutral density grad in the holder, and what happens is that you can see that transition line go right across the land where the land isn't quite straight across at the horizon. And again, that's kind of unsightly and doesn't look natural, so I wanted to fix that. So again, I pulled the filter out of the holder and I handheld it. By handholding it, I'm able to smooth out that transition again, I'm able to maintain that drama in the sky that I wanted, but at the same time, it's not as obvious as a HardEdged filter might be when I have something that's intersecting the horizon, such as the headlands here where the lighthouse is there. So the key thing with this technique is going to be experimentation. It may take a few tries to get it right. You really want to practice this a little bit. And again, as I said, you don't want the exposure to be much longer than a second or two. The longer you have the shutter open, the more chance that you might mess up the exposure by knocking the filter into the lens.